RTB asks the question, can we prove God exists? The answer is no. And, what's more, they actually admit that the answer is no in the video. Let's analyze it for logical fallacies. By let's, I mean me, and then you'll... just here's the video.
And I'm here with astrophysicist Jeff Zweerink. And today, we'll be asking the question, can we prove God exists?
So this is either an appeal to a false authority or just an appeal to authority. I'm not really sure which one it is, but it's one of them, if not both of them. You see, is a scientist really the authority to go to find out if there's God or not? That would mean that science is the best way to find out things, and science really can't test God or form any hypothesis about God. So I'm going to have to say that would make it an appeal to a false authority, but I think that they're mentioning that he's a scientist because that lends him some sort of credibility. It's like, oh, look, see, we've got scientists that believe in God.
What you do all day is you seek to prove that God exists.
If that's what he's doing all day, he's definitely not doing science.
Yes and no. So you can't say, no, I don't look for evidence that God exists, because that is what I do. But it's the idea of proving there, because there are only a few places where we can prove something where this, and it's got to be this, and there's no way around it. But what we do is I spend a lot of time looking for evidence that God exists. And so we're asking the question, what's the best explanation for all the evidence we have out there? And so we do build a case that God exists, but I don't like that word prove, if you will.
So he doesn't like the word, but that doesn't really answer the question. But it hints at the answer being no. Because if proof only happens under certain circumstances, although looking at different definitions of proof, I don't really understand why he's objecting to it at all. I mean, certainly he knows about these definitions. It's not like he's using some bizarre idea of what proof is, right?
So proof is something you do in geometry. I don't know if you ever remembered your geometry classes, but if you can show this and then you show this, then you got the side angle side says that this triangle's got to be. Those are proofs. There's given this and this has to be true.
Amazing. Every word of what you just said was wrong.
Nope.
So I guess I'll have to go with fractal error, because he's just incorrect. I mean, he's got a BS and an MD. This guy should be brilliant. He should be smart. I mean, look at how many papers he's published. Oh, 4? What? Really? 4. With 2 citations. Huh. Well? Yeah.
Well, we don't have something that probes and says, oh, this is God. You know, we don't have a God meter, if you will. But what we do have is we have a creator who created the universe who...
Okay.
How do you know that? I said, how do you know that? No, you can't just say, well, we don't have a probe, but what we do have is this. How do you know? You don't have...
built it and fashioned it and have held it a certain way that we can go investigate, and then we can say, given all that we've measured, what's the best explanation?
Oh, I see. You pre-assume that there is a God, then go look for the evidence to prove that there is a God, and conclude that there is a God. There's no problem with that.
In fact, that's the way science works. We never prove stuff. We go out and say, what is the best explanation for all the evidence we have?
Well, it's kind of true, but he didn't, say all the things that he could have about science, because it probably would have, made him being an apologetic kind of difficult. So, yeah. Anyways.
One of the critiques about science is that they're always changing what they believe.
It is, and I find that an odd critique because what we do is we look and we say, all right, here's the evidence we have. Here's the best explanation. We say, if that's true, then this is what we ought to find. And so we go out, and if we find that, then that gives us more confidence that our explanation is correct. But if we find a new piece of evidence that says, no, we're incomplete, we either need to go back and modify and change it. That, to me, is the sign of someone who's got a healthy belief system, because they're not so dogmatic that they're set regardless of what the evidence says.
Well then, I'm sure you're going to provide us what evidence would convince you that God doesn't exist, right? Right? You're going to do that in this video, right? Hello? Anyone there? Hello? He's not going to do that, is he? Nope. Oh, okay. All right.
And they're open and willing to refining what they have. And I find as Christians, we've got the best foundation to do that.
Well, wouldn't you say that the proof and evidence is a little bit different for us as Christians? I mean, shouldn't we be able to say proof since what we know doesn't change?
So in anything we do, we're looking, I mean, even, let's take a look at something that all Christians agree on. We've got the Bible there. We believe that it's an inspired, inerrant word of God, that it is true in all that it says. But yet when we look at it, we still have to look and say, okay, we've got to interpret what the words mean.
So the answer to the question, can you prove God exists, is no. Why not just say no? Can't you just say no? Also, you're wrong about all Christians agreeing upon anything, even the thing that you think is foundational. Also, the idea that you have what is true already is an extraordinary bias to get over. Also, the fact that you have to interpret anything leads to all sorts of problems, and that's why there's so many different denominations, because there isn't a agreement upon what things mean. There's a disagreement. And so, unlike science, where we have many minds working on a problem and it comes together and converges on a single answer, and they don't know this, they're working independently of each other. Unlike that, religion is backwards in that it starts with one idea and then spawns like 20 different answers to that one idea because you have to interpret it. So that's just a problem, that you overlooked that I wanted to point out there. Oh, also, while I'm here, I was up to how many also? Whatever. Thanks to the Bible Skeptic for this awesome picture. Yeah, Bible Skeptic, go subscribe to him now or else.
Though we can be confident the Bible is true, that doesn't mean we have everything nailed down. We're 100% confident of everything it says.
But the problem is you didn't give us any reason why we should have confidence that the Bible is true at all. Like, what system did you use to come to that conclusion? Certainly not science, and you had already admitted no test, because you said there wasn't like a probe for God. So that only leaves us with the logically coherent argument, and it's not looking good for you. I mean, I admit you haven't acquired more fallacies than 4, just like you've only written 4 papers, unless that website's wrong, which it could be. But I'm not wrong. I'm right, unless you did more than what I said. But then I just missed something, which I can't do because I'm prefect.
I find if God is the inspiration for Scripture, and I'm convinced He is, that He's given that He's the author of creation.
Hey, because God's the author of creation, He's also the author of this book, the inspiration for this book. Somehow, and the other books that are holy. Why not? I mean, He wrote everything. He's the inspiration for all books. Yay!
We ought to see a similar scenario there, that we're going to go look, find out what's there, and as we get more data, it's going to help us hone in on the better picture, or the more complete picture. But we're always going to have ways that it might be different. And so that's what's exciting about science, is that we're never going to run out of stuff to test.
So, false equivalence. This occurs when you have two completely opposing arguments that appear to be logically equivalent, when in fact they're not. It's basically a fallacy of inconsistency. Now here, he's essentially saying, we'll never run out of tests. That's what makes science fun. And the equivalence is in direct relation to finding out things about the Bible that are true, when you could not hope to apply the scientific method to do that. So that's something else, not science. So therefore these two arguments are in conflict, therefore it's a false equivalence. And yeah, there you go. So yeah, that's what it is.
Well, when defending the faith, isn't proof a much stronger, more powerful word than, I have some evidence?
Okay, so is proof greater than evidence, or is evidence greater than proof? That's the questions that we're asking, I guess, by what she just said. Those would be the oh man. I think the problem is that, she believed him when he said that proof meant the thing that he said, which is only true in mathematics, there's logical proof. Now, of course, there isn't a scientific proof, but that's a whole separate thing that he didn't even mention. Oh, man. So for anyone that's not sure, these actually equal each other. So neither one is stronger. Maybe it's just, I don't know, subjective on which sounds better. But whether you have proof or evidence, you basically got the same thing.
It is and it isn't. And so if you can prove something, then by all means state it. But I don't think God is provable in that sense.
So there you go. No was the answer, just like I told you. Thanks for watching. What do you mean there's more? He's done! He gave the answer to the question! How could there be more?
I'm completely convinced that the Bible's true. Here's why I think it is, or I think all the evidence points to there being a creator. So I think you can state that pretty strongly.
Hey, you say it better than I could, so here you are saying what I want to say.
Oh, really? Let me show you where you're wrong.
And now, back to the video analysis.
But what you really want to talk about is who is God and how do we relate to him. So I avoid that word proof just for that reason, because I want to get to that conversation. Who do you think God is? What are you going to do with it?
Ah, I see. So you avoid the word proof as an apologetic tactic to avoid saying any proof at all because you don't have any. And so, but who do you think God is and what are you going to do with him? I don't know if God is a who or a him, so I can't answer those questions there. You're going to have to kind of prove that God is a thing at all, let alone a him thing at all.
Final question is, do you have any examples or stories from yourself or that you've experienced where there would be an example of how careful choosing between proof and evidence can actually help us be more credible when sharing the gospel?
I will give a brief story. So I was at a conference once.
Yeah, appeal to analogy and we're done because your analogy doesn't matter. We don't know if the conference happened. We don't know if you said what you said in the conference or that anybody responded as they did. But it's interesting that you talk about the origin of life in that supposed conference, and then you're like, I didn't like it. I was all hostile and sarcastic. It's like, yeah, because you already believe that you have the answer to the origin of life being God. But see, you can't take Genesis literally because we know that two humans weren't made in the way that it says, or other animals for that matter. So the origin of life has to be God poofing into existence the first amino acids or whatever, I guess. But he doesn't like that because he's a Christian. Anyways, it's time to wrap up. So we had 6 logical fallacies, perhaps some more. depending on how you look at certain things that he said and how incoherent you think the things he said were. But I was trying to steel man him, but still, he has logical fallacies. But at least he also doesn't have empirical evidence. He has a repeatable. No, he doesn't have a test either. So he's got nothing. And what's funny is he's admitted that you can't prove God, which under all the other definitions basically means that there's no evidence for God, even though he kind of suggests that he spends all day looking for evidence for God. But he already has an idea of what God is. But how did you get that idea? Where is the thing that is the God? You can't point to that. It's not empirical, apparently. And that makes it beyond the realm of science to ever hope to touch. It's completely unfalsifiable, and therefore is not something that you could find using any scientific methodology. Unless, of course, God is natural. But then it wouldn't be the God of the Bible. And it wouldn't be this guy's God. We don't have empirical evidence, repeatable test, or a valid and sound argument. And unless and until we do, we have to be skeptical of the conclusions.